Explorer, naturalist, author, soldier, and predominantly president, these are all titles bestowed to Theodore Roosevelt Jr. Roosevelt was born in 1858 in New York City. He was homeschooled throughout his primary education, which allowed him to pursue his love of geography, naturalism, and other studies, all before attending Harvard University and later Columbia Law School. By 24, he had published his first book, The Naval War of 1812. Here, young Roosevelt meticulously describes naval battles that had happened over 70 years prior, along with the social climate of the time. The book ended up having a huge impact on the formation of the now modern American Navy. The same year, Roosevelt lost his wife and mother on the same day, tragically, 11 hours apart. In his diary, he marked an X on a blank page and wrote, "The light has gone out of my life." He had started the beginning of a long career in politics already by this point, but the sudden deaths of his mother and wife left him depressed, so he left New York City. He went and built a ranch in rural North Dakota that he named Elkhorn. Here he earned the respect of the cowboys of the area, who taught him more about nature and roughing it. He even became a sheriff's deputy, all while writing for national magazines about nature and the Wild West. He also published 3 more books during this time as well. He remarried and moved back to New York City, where he ran as mayor as a Republican in 1886 while he was only 28 years old. He failed, but eventually returned to New York City in 1895 when he was appointed president of the New York City Police Commissioners. In 97 of that century, Roosevelt had become the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, eventually leaving the position to found the first U.S. Voluntary Cavalry Regiment, more popularly known as the Rough Riders. In the Spanish-American War, under his leadership, the Rough Riders were successful in the Battle of Kettle Hill, one of the most important battles of the war. Here he is famed for saying, "On the day of the big fight, I had to ask my men to do a deed that European military riders considered utterly impossible of performance. The only way to get them to do it, and the way it had to be done, was to lead them myself." Soon after, Roosevelt's career skyrocketed because of his performance in the war, and shortly upon his arrival back home later that year, he became governor of New York. In 1899, then President Garrett Hobart died of heart failure. This ended up in Roosevelt being nominated and appointed as his replacement as vice president under Republican President McKinley. This lasted approximately 6 months and was cut short as the president was assassinated in September of 1901. This left the 42-year-old Theodore Roosevelt as President of the United States of America. At that time, he was the youngest president ever. He was again re-elected in 1904 as the 26th President of the United States officially. And during his presidency, he became known as the Trust Buster. He brought 44 antitrust suits, which broke up the Northern Securities Company, which was the largest railroad monopoly in the world, and regulating Standard Oil, which was the largest oil and refinery company. In comparison, the 3 presidents prior to him had only made 18 antitrust suits combined. Teddy Roosevelt is also considered one of the greatest conservationists in American history. During his presidency, he founded the United Forest Service, which administers the nation's 154 national forests and 20 national grasslands. He also created 5 national parks and created the 1906 Antiquities Act, which is responsible for making historical landmarks. He alone placed over 230 million acres under federal protection. Roosevelt is also responsible for mediating a conflict between the Japanese and Russians, which could have led to an all-out world war prior to World War I. This earned him a Nobel Peace Prize. Roosevelt lived to be 60 years old and died a veteran, a president, a governor, an author, a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and a conservationist. Without him, we may or may not have many of the parks we have today, and the country's economics could be completely different. He was a man of many talents, whose history will be embedded with other great American presidents. And then he's also featured on Mount Rushmore. And he's famed for saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick, and you will go far," which is the way Theodore Roosevelt lived his life.